Welcome back to An Autistic Girl and Her God podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Baltusis, and I'm so glad that you're here with me today. In the last episode, we talked about executive dysfunction. That was a big one. Did you listen? Today, we're diving deep into something that many neurodivergent folks experience daily, often without explanation or support. It's stimming and sensory processing. If you're neurodivergent, a parent to a neurodivergent child, or just curious about how to support people better, this episode is for you. Today, we're exploring what stimming is and why it matters, the different sensory processing profiles, tips and tricks from an occupational therapy lens, when to know you need to stim and how to choose the right one, and of course, as always, faith-based encouragement for embracing the way that God made you. Our scripture of the day is Acts 17:28a from the NIV. For in him we live and move and have our being. It's time for the tea of the day. I love tea, and I thought that I would share the different kinds of teas that I'm drinking while I am recording these podcasts. Today, I am drinking a peppermint tea. You just can't go wrong with a peppermint tea, am I right? All right, let's dive right into stimming and sensory processing. This episode is a beefy one today. Have your pen and paper ready, pause as you need to, write things down furiously. It's gonna be good. What is stimming and why do we do it? We're going to start with the very heart of the neurodivergent experience. Stimming, or self-stimulatory behavior, is any repetitive movement, sound, or action that helps regulate your nervous system. It's mostly commonly talked about in the autistic community, but all humans actually stim. Think about twirling your hair, bouncing your leg, humming while you work, or tapping your pen, clicking your pen. All these things are forms of stimming. So why do we stim? Well, there are a lot of reasons that we stim. To regulate our emotions and reduce our anxiety, like calming down when you're anxious or hyping up when you're tired, to manage sensory input and self-soothe during stress or overstimulation, to help us focus when our brain needs sensory input to stay on task, to help us express joy or excitement. Many of us flap or jump or rock when we're genuinely happy. We also stim to stay grounded in our body when the world just feels so overwhelming. From an occupational therapy lens, stimming is often the body's natural attempt to seek or avoid certain sensory inputs, a built-in regulation tool that God gave us. How cool is that? And here's the thing, stimming is not bad. It's not something to fix or shame or train out of us. It's a language that your nervous system speaks, and it deserves to be heard. It's something we need to understand and support. If you stop a neurodivergent person from stimming, it's like throwing a Mentos in a Coke bottle and putting the lid on and hoping for the best. It's not going to go well. What about negative or harmful stims? Some stims can become harmful or even uncomfortable, especially when we don't have safe alternatives. This includes things like cheek or lip biting, skin picking or nail pulling, hair pulling, scratching until the skin breaks, hitting yourselves or headbanging, biting objects not meant to be chewed. And I'm going to throw this in here. Sometimes cutting can be a form of a stim. It's obviously not a healthy one, but it does need to be mentioned that some people use cutting as a stim. These are still valid attempts at regulation. They often come from high stress, emotional dysregulation, or sensory need gone unmet. Rather than trying to stop these stims cold turkey, we want to ask, what is this stim trying to do for me or my child? Then we can offer some safe alternatives that will meet the same need. Here are some safe stim alternatives by need. So your need might be oral seeking, chewing your nails, biting your lips. Some safe alternatives would be jewelry or silicone straws or crunchy snacks like carrots or gum. I'm a big gum person. I love a good gum. Skin picking. For skin picking, you could use something like a fidget popper, textured putty, velvet or sequin fabric strips. Fidget rings, they make these ones that you can put right on your finger and you can kind of pick them, like if you're skin picking. They're pretty cool. Hair pulling. You can use a stim brush on your scalp, wear a tight headband, or braid your hair for resistance. Head banging. You could use a weighted hat. I never even knew those existed. Deep pressure input, like pushing against a wall or a yoga ball. You could use a weighted lap pad or just punch a regular pillow. Scratching. You could use something like sensory gloves, textured cloths, a firm massage with lotion or oil. And for tension relief, you could use something like a resistance band, stress balls, hand grip tools. These are everywhere. Also, sometimes people stim in these ways because they're disassociating or emotionally overwhelmed. So adding in grounding techniques can be super helpful. These are things like a cold water splash or a cold pack on the back of your neck, weighted items, talking out loud and telling yourself, I'm safe, I'm here, 5 senses check-in. Name one thing you see, hear, touch, smell, and taste. Box breathing. This is where you breathe in for 4, hold it for 4, exhale for 4, and then hold for 4. Or you could try a deep pressure hug from behind. How to tell when you need to stim. We often wait too long before letting ourselves stim, especially if we've been taught that it's weird or unprofessional. But stimming early is like taking a deep breath before you run out of air. Here are some signs you might need to stim. You're feeling anxious, tense, or buzzy inside. You're overstimulated or starting to disassociate. You're struggling to focus or complete a task. You're feeling joy or excitement and you just want to move your body and express it. Or you might feel trapped in your head or disconnected from your body. You can ask yourself, what sensory input do I need right now? Movement, sound, pressure, visual stimulation. What kind of stim usually helps me feel better in moments like this? The goal isn't to stop stimming, it's to tune in and stim with awareness and support. I highly recommend making a stim menu, and you can keep that in your phone and use it to help you remember what worked in what situations. And then you can pull that out when you're struggling and not have to do the mental work of remembering. That is the hardest part. Just have it on your phone ready to go. How do you know what kind of stim you need? That's a great question. Ask yourself these questions. Do I feel understimulated or overstimulated? Am I trying to wake up or calm down? What part of my body feels most agitated or tense? If you feel understimulated, try movement, music, chewing, or something energizing. Example, bouncing on an exercise ball or swinging your arms. If you feel overstimulated, try calming input. Deep pressure, low light, silence, white noise, rocking. Another example would be to curl up under a weighted blanket in a dark room and hum softly. Keep a sensory toolkit on hand, either physically or mentally, with go-to strategies for different situations. It's important to remember that Jesus knew what it meant to step away when he was overstimulated by crowds or pressure. In Mark 1:35, he withdrew to a quiet place to pray. Sensory care can actually be spiritual care. What does Christianity say about stimming? Well, the church hasn't always known what to do with stimming. Many of us were told to sit still, stop fidgeting, be quiet in God's presence. But what if stimming is a way of being in God's presence? Let me take that even further. What if stimming is an expression of being in God's presence? That includes your hands that flap when you're excited, or your fingers that pick at fabric when you're thinking, your body that rocks back and forth in prayer and worship. God doesn't ask us to mask how he made us. He calls us to come to him as children. And what do children do? They move, they hum, they bounce, they stim, and they are definitely not quiet. So whether you're twirling, tapping, spinning, or squeezing, let that be a form of worship, self-regulation, and part of your divine design. I've seen many people in the charismatic world that I live in rock back and forth really quickly when they're deeply experiencing the presence of God. I always wondered if that might be them stimming. It's a bodily expression of what God is doing on the inside. When we think about it this way, to stop the stim would be to cut off the flow of the Holy Spirit and the work that he's doing inside of us. I actually wish I was more free in this area. And I'm looking forward to the day where I'm going to break free and I'm going to really allow the Spirit to move in and through me, but I'm just not there yet. Jesus welcomed children who moved and wiggled. The gospel makes space for sensory needs. Stimming is not less holy than stillness. Regulating yourself is not selfish. It's stewardship. May we see our stimming as sacred. May we support one another with compassion. And may we hold space in our churches and our families and friendships for every beautifully wired body. Maybe you never learned how to stim. Maybe you've just been keeping everything bottled up inside and haven't been quite sure what to do with it all. I am right there with you, friend. I didn't even know that I didn't know how to stim, and I hadn't really thought about it. I always thought, oh, that's for other autistic people. They need to stim. I don't need to stim. I'm good. But turns out I was wrong. I actually had this conversation with one of my kiddos the other night, and they were asking me some questions. I was having a really hard time with something. I was very disappointed, and I was trying to work through it, and I was wanting to explain it to them the way that I was feeling. So I said, you know that feeling where when you're getting ready to go play, because this particular kiddo has a stim that they have always done, and it's what they call it playing, or they called it playing for a long time, but now they refer to it as stimming because they understand what it is. I said, you know that feeling before you're gonna go play that you just really need to play? And they said, yeah. And I said, that's how I feel right now. I said, but I don't I don't have a way to play. I don't have a way to work through it. And they said to me, you don't have a way to stim? And it just shattered me. Like, I don't even know how to explain what it did inside of me to realize that I'm an autistic person who doesn't know how to stim, that doesn't know how to release the things that are stuck inside of me. I think the only way I've ever known to do it is just to cry. That's been my only release. I have a stim that I do when I have a lot of energy. I run my thumb over my forefingers. And I think I learned how to do this when I was in school and I was just trying to hide my energy. And, you can only click a pen so many times before you get yelled at. And I was chewing up all my pens and I had all these different things that I was doing just to try to pay attention and not vibrate out of the universe, as I like to say. So I learned how to do that stim, but that is a stim that I use when I have a lot of energy and I just need it to go somewhere. But I still haven't quite discovered a stim that's going to help me release everything that I'm storing inside. And so when I was doing the research for this podcast, I got so excited because there are some really great ideas in here. And I'm actually going to go through this whole process myself of figuring out how I stim, what works for me. I've always loved crafting. I love working with my hands and being creative, but I haven't been allowing myself to do that because I'm an autism mom and my life is so busy and I'm in ministry and there's so many things on my list that I haven't made time for me. That's something that my counselor and I are working on is she's like, time for yourself is not a want. It is a need. You need to take care of yourself. It's that old saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. And obviously, as moms and autistic autism moms, we are often pouring from empty cups. God just increases that capacity for us in a really incredible way. But we can't sustain that. We were never designed to sustain that. And so these tips and tricks of stimming and finding ways that regulate your nervous system are so important. If you don't take time for yourself, friend, you're going to burn out. And then if you burn out, because it's inevitable, go back and listen to the burnout episode of this podcast and hopefully you'll get some tips there too. But let's try to avoid the burnout, shall we? Let's learn how to stim in a way that feels authentic for us, that is recharging and feels good. Now let's switch gears and let's talk about sensory profiles. We all have a unique sensory profile, meaning the way that our body processes things like sound, light, touch, smell, taste, movement, and even pressure. Some of us are sensory seekers. We crave movement, bright lights, crunchy textures. Others are sensory avoiders. We might get overwhelmed by crowds, strong smells, or those itchy fabrics. There's no right or wrong way to be. Just be your way. A sensory profile is like a blueprint for how your nervous system reacts to the world. It's not about being too sensitive or not paying attention. It's about how your body and your brain work together to process sensory input. Everyone falls somewhere on a spectrum with sensory processing. Some people are seekers, some are avoiders, and others fall somewhere in between. And you might not be the same across all the senses. You might seek out movement but avoid noise. Let's break down the 4 main sensory processing styles originally developed by occupational therapist Winnie Dunn. Number 1, sensory seeking. These folks crave that sensory input. They want more, they want louder, they want brighter. It has to be faster. Some signs of this in adults: always tapping fingers or legs. They talk loudly or seek loud environments. They crave spicy, crunchy, or strong flavored food. They're often moving, dancing, fidgeting, or multitasking. They love roller coasters or spinning rides. Some signs in kids: they're constantly in motion. They're climbing, jumping, crashing into things. They love the crash. They make loud noises or they seek loud toys. They put things in their mouth often. They touch everything and everyone. And they're always chewing on shirt sleeves, pencils, or hair. So what helps in this area? Providing active, regular sensory input like trampolines, chewables, fidgets, or even music breaks. And allow time for movement or even rough play before focus-heavy tasks. Number 2, sensory avoiding. These folks are easily overwhelmed by sensory input and they may shut down or withdraw. Some signs in adults are they're very sensitive to bright light or loud sounds. They avoid crowded spaces or group settings. They might blame this on being an introvert. They hate tags and tight clothing or certain fabrics. They're easily startled by sudden sounds or touches. And they might retreat to quiet, dim places for recovery. Some signs in kids: they might cover their ears or eyes in public. They complain about itchy clothing or messy hands. They avoid playgrounds or loud rooms. They refuse hugs or grooming tasks like hairbrushing. And they might have meltdowns after busy outings or transitions. So what helps? For these folks, you need to create a calm down zone or a sensory retreat space. Use headphones, dim lighting, and comfort objects. Prepare transitions ahead of time with visuals or scripts. Number 3, sensory sensitive, aka low threshold. These individuals don't seek or avoid, they just notice everything. They are highly aware, and it can be exhausting. Some signs of this in adults: noticing flickering lights or subtle background noise. They're easily distracted or overwhelmed by minor sensory changes. They find certain smells absolutely unbearable. They might be emotionally reactive to crowded or chaotic environments. Some signs in kids: they're hyper aware of minor sounds like buzzing or fans. They can be upset by changes in the routine or the environment. They have difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep. They might seem picky, but they're really just overwhelmed. What helps these folks? Simplify the sensory environment. Offer one sensory input at a time and normalize breaks and pacing. And finally, number 4, low registration. These folks tend to miss sensory input altogether, or it needs to be extra intense for them to notice it. They might appear tired or spacey or hard to engage. Some signs in adults: they don't notice their hunger, their pain, or their temperature until it's extreme. They often appear slow to respond or even out of it. They might prefer strong flavors or bright colors to feel awake, and they might feel disconnected from their body. Some signs in kids: they don't react to their name being called. They might seem unaware of bumps, bruises, or messes. They play calmly for long periods without stimulation, and it can take them a while to react or follow directions. So what helps with this? Use vivid sensory input like bright visuals, strong tastes, big movements. Try body awareness games like mirror dancing or obstacle courses, and offer verbal reminders and check-ins. So how do you figure out your sensory profile anyway? Well, you can take my new free sensory processing quiz online. I made it just for you, and it's on my website. I'm going to put the link in the caption. But you can also just pay attention to your body. When do you feel overstimulated? What brings you comfort when you're overwhelmed? What textures, sounds, movements feel good to your body? Self-awareness is the first step towards sensory self-care. Start by observing patterns across daily life. What makes you or your child light up with joy? What leads to meltdowns, shutdowns, or even withdrawal? What behaviors repeat when stress is high? And what settings are easiest or hardest to be in? You could journal or even make a simple chart over a week to look for patterns. And yet, let's be honest, autistic people love our pattern. We love to find patterns, don't we? So this will be a fun experiment on your own self. If you're parenting a neurodivergent child, try narrating what you see with compassion and curiosity, not judgment. You might say, I noticed you really like spinning today. Does that help your body feel better? Or it looked like the lights at church were really bright for you today. Did that hurt your eyes? Also consider working with an occupational therapist. We have worked with some not so great ones, and we've worked with some really great ones, and they can provide a full sensory assessment and individualized strategies. I want to give you a couple of quick sensory tips that you can use in a pinch for all 5 of your senses. For sight, you can use sunglasses or blue light glasses, dim lighting or a lamp instead of overhead lights. Or you can even look at calming visuals like clouds or nature or your favorite art. For sound, you can use noise-canceling headphones. You can listen to brown noise or worship music, or you can cover your ears or hum to self-regulate. For touch, you can use soft textured items that you can keep in your pocket, like a little fabric swatch, or they used to call them worry stones. You could keep one of those in your pocket. You can use deep pressure. Ask someone to give you a hug, crossing their arms tightly around you. Remove tags or irritating clothing when you can. In my house, you probably won't find any tags on anything because the minute we feel them, they're ripped out. Taste. You can use mint. I'm using peppermint tea today. Ginger or sour candy for alerting input. You can use warm tea for a calming input. That's probably why I drink so much tea. You can use crunchy or chewy snacks. I love crunchy snacks. That's my thing. I love crunchy snacks. I don't eat them all the time, but when I want them, I want them. And for smell, you can use lavender or peppermint essential oil. Lavender is usually used for calming and peppermint for a little mood boost. Although for some people, these actually work opposite. So somebody might use lavender to amp them up and another person might use peppermint to calm them down. It's bizarre, but it does happen. You can have a favorite scented lip balm or smell a hoodie or an item that reminds you of someone safe. These small sensory shifts can bring peace. Just like anointing your space with some calm. Listen, God created your senses. The way you move through the world is not a flaw. It's a form of divine design. We were all created with sensory needs. God did not make a mistake. We just need to seek His help to learn how we're wired so we can meet those needs. You don't need to force yourself or your child into a sensory mold that doesn't fit. Instead, you get to discover what helps you thrive, and I highly encourage you to worship your way through it. Worship the Lord when you're spinning and dancing. He delights in you. I want to give you a few OT-informed supports so that you can understand the sensory systems that you have. We're going to go deep into these sensory needs from an OT perspective. These are not just hacks or tricks. These are strategies that help regulate our nervous systems in ways that honor how we were created. We're going to explore the 3 key systems that therapists often focus on for sensory regulation: proprioception, vestibular, and deep pressure. Each one plays a unique role in helping us feel safe, grounded, and focused. Let's kick it off with proprioception. This is your body awareness. This system tells you where your body is in space, and you activate it through pressure on your joints and your muscles. It's grounding, calming, and it organizes the brain. That's wild to me. When you push, pull, lift, or squeeze things, your body is getting that proprioceptive feedback. Here are some signs you might need some proprioception. You might be feeling restless or disconnected. You might be craving some deep hugs or pushing on things. You might be clenching your jaw or your fists without even realizing it. So some things that you can do are wall push-ups, carrying groceries or laundry, lift some heavy objects, chew some crunchy snacks, climb, stomp, squeeze, jump or squat, or use some weighted blankets or compression vests. Proprioception is like a recalibration tool for your nervous system. It helps your brain feel like, okay, I'm here, I'm safe, I know where I am, and that kind of grounding is a gift from God. Next is the vestibular system. This is housed in your inner ear and helps you feel motion and orientation, movement and balance. Think inner ear swings and spins. Your vestibular system tells your brain how your body is moving, like spinning, swinging, turning, or tilting. It's why kids love to be swung around or spun in circles. It can either calm you down or wake you up depending on how it's used. Some signs you might need vestibular input: you might be feeling sluggish, unfocused, or tired. You might need to rock or pace or move constantly, and you might be feeling overwhelmed and needing a reset. Some examples that you could try are spinning on a swing or a spinner. You can swing or rock. You can lay upside down. A lot of kids like to lay upside down on a couch. You can rock in a chair or a porch swing, dance, pace, jump, and even rolling on the ground. But the vestibular system comes with a little bit of a warning. It's important to go slowly at first with vestibular input. Too much spinning too fast can actually overwhelm your system instead of help. But the right kind is like a breath of fresh air for your nervous system. Vestibular input can alert or soothe, so think of it as a movement reset button. And finally, deep pressure. This is containment and calm. Firm touch, especially across a large surface of your body, can release calming chemicals in your brain. Deep pressure input is firm and evenly distributed pressure across the body. It's like a bear hug or a weighted blanket or squeezing into a cozy spot. It helps release calming neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. Some signs you may need deep pressure: you might be feeling anxious or overstimulated. You might feel yourself wanting to hide under blankets or pile on the pillows. And you might feel sensitive to light touch, but crave strong touch. So some things you can try: tight hugs or a body sock, compression vests or clothing. You could squeeze a body pillow. You can lay under heavy blankets, lap pads, or couch cushions. Kids love that. Or even a beanbag. You can wear snug but comfy clothing. Or you can even roll up like a burrito in a blanket. My kids love that. Deep pressure is like a sensory hug from the inside out. And when we feel like the world is too much, that sense of containment is sometimes the exact comfort our body craves. Here's what's beautiful. These systems don't operate in isolation. You might need a mix of proprioceptive input and deep pressure, or a little vestibular movement to wake up followed by heavy work to ground again. This is where having a personalized sensory toolkit, what works for you, can change everything. I have one child that needs to combine systems with a yoga ball and a puzzle. They'll bend backwards over the yoga ball and reach for that puzzle piece, and then sit back up and go over to the spot where the puzzle's being assembled. Then they repeat the process until the puzzle's done. And it is crazy how regulating it is for them. I love thinking about how God wired us with these systems. They aren't flaws, they're features. When we engage in movement, pressure, or deep sensory input, we aren't being disruptive or weird. We're actually tending to our temple and finding the calm that He offers. Psalm 94:19 says, "When anxiety was great within me, your consolation brought me joy." For some of us, that consolation might look like swinging on a hammock or sitting under a weighted blanket with a worship playlist. And that, my friends, is holy work. Thank you for spending time with me today. So much of understanding ourselves comes back to asking, how did God design me to experience the world? Stimming and sensory awareness are part of that beautiful design. Now, don't forget to head over to my website, nikkibaltusis.com. I'm going to put that in the caption. You're going to take that sensory profile test, get your results, make your menu, make a plan, try all these things, see what works for you, and take care of yourself. And if you loved this episode, would you consider sharing it with someone who might need to feel seen in this area? Until next time, may you grow in confidence to care for your needs, ask for what helps, and move through this world with grace and self-understanding. And don't miss the next episode where we're going to be talking about filters, theory of mind, and being misunderstood. Ah, yes, the plight of the autistic person. I can't wait till next time. Blessings to you.